Well, let's get this off here. It's 10 a.m. I appreciate everyone being here.
It's tied up, who knows?
And if there's some stragglers coming in, that's fine too. But welcome everyone to the Koochiching County and City of International Falls Roundtable discussion meeting on Monday, January 8th, 2024. We are at Bacchus and graciously thank them for hosting with this room. So, first up, maybe we have, I don't know if Commissioner Erickson has been here before. If you want to introduce himself, and if the city would like to introduce themselves to Commissioner Erickson.
Commissioner Erickson. I met at the last KETA meeting. Yeah.
Good morning. I apologize.
He probably told me, well, he was there a lot earlier for that meeting. But
you know Councilor Kaler, Councilor Holden, and Councilor Bowen.
Councilor Holden, I spent a lot of time by your place hunting, Birchhill.
Yeah.
I'm in that area, so. And I know you got cattle and logging and, yeah, firemen.
Don't mistake that call for a deer.
That was a good taste of beer.
You'll have to excuse me. The furnace went out at my father-in-law's place, so I better probably take it.
yeah, well, speaking of.
Yeah, weather.
Well, we don't have any particular items to discuss today. I know we have some stuff on the agenda from our last meeting, some of the discussion that we had emphasized on the ambulance service and the airport, and both of them are in having funding questions and how we're going to kind of get a funding mechanism kind of figured out for both of those in the future. And I think on behalf on our county, we've been having light discussions on how to proceed with an ambulance taxi district. We're kind of looking into the legalities of how we can do this. If we can, I know we can, and Biddy had mentioned, Administrator Bergstrom had mentioned that we probably would not be able to join it with the essential fire. There may be some differences there, so that's kind of what we're looking into, is legality-wise, excuse me, and get the tongue out of my mouth, right? So those are some of the questions that we're looking at, and and how that affects the surrounding communities as well. If it affects that, or if it doesn't, or can we go around them, or things like that. I think we can. But one of the other questions I have also is a moratorium question. There's a moratorium on taxi districts, and I don't know if that's going to affect this or not. So that's another question that the state representatives would be asked and will be asked, and we'll find that out. I know they have a moratorium on Lake Lost and things like that right now till I think April of 2025. So that being said, I know that I don't believe, and I guess I shouldn't say because I don't know if this would be a voted, which I don't think it would be, referendum for something like this. I think we could probably make that decision amongst our group here to be able to do that. But I don't know, it has to be approved, if it has to be approved by the state, and if this moratorium is going to affect that approval. So we've got to find that out. That's one of the other questions that I have that we have not yet heard back on, but we'll be visiting with the senator and representative tomorrow at our discussion at our committee of the whole. So that's one of our topics of discussion is going to be that issue in particular. So, and I know that the city's kind of advocated for that at a discussion in Buell here a few weeks ago that the mayor and fire chief had attended.
And I did, and we didn't so much advocate for it, but that was part of it. Just the same. We're not in a unique situation here with the city supplying ambulance service and not getting any help. But that being said, there was some places, they don't really want. Oh, no one wants a taxing district, right? Because they're taxed enough. But I guess they have to find some other ways. But they're working on it. But there was input on that, and I think the consensus of the legislatures that were there and are on the committee, which is Senator Hochschild is one, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he's from the Aurora area, I think, is a representative on it. The whole committee understands the problem, and I got the impression this isn't just political lip service that they're putting onto it, because there were some dire stories about ambulance services around. So dire that a representative from the Minnetonka Fire Department was there just to give support, that we understand this is all over. No, a lot of the places too is getting people to do it, volunteer. Like a lot of them are EMTs. So there's another thing, or even getting paramedics to do it. People go into like all things, right? Another big thing was transfers out of, from Virginia to Duluth, even down there, they're having they gotta wait so long, say you're in Ely at Essential, go to Essential, well, the ambulance there's only so many people, right? And you don't wanna send all your ambulances on the road, stuff like that. So, but I got the impression that they were serious about looking into the issue and hopefully come up with something.
Right, yep.
And there was also someone even mentioned, and I don't know if you can, like you do with the solid waste fee on there, which is really no difference in a taxing district, right? Put that fee on, but things like that. But it was encouraging anyhow to see, and it was a packed room. So,
Yep. That's any of the ones I've seen and have been to have been the same. They've been full. My first one I went to was with the fire chief, Manassa, and it was nearly standing room only at that one there, and that was in a little township in between Virginia and Chisholm, or somewhere out in the Clinton Township, I think is where it was. But anyway, and it was standing room only in that room, and it was full of people, SRB, state reps, local government reps, things like that. So. Definitely an issue, and it's been going on for a long time. So has there been any movement on this? Any other?
No, they were just in the, and I haven't heard from the fire chief or whatever of any movement with I can't remember the acronyms, the one that's in charge of the ambulance, but it sounds like that is heading in a little better direction now too with the new director they have in, because there's also a lot of people talking about, you have an EMT, but you got to have 2 people on call. Well, there's places like Tower that they only have 2 EMTs in town, and I mean, like at the station on call and stuff like that. So trying to get some of the process of, like we all know up here, one size doesn't fit all, and work with that. And I think that's all going to be part of what can come through here.
Sure. Yeah. Any questions or any other thoughts?
My thought is if we do a taxing district, is it gonna interrupt what you guys are trying to do with the state, with them guys issuing money? If we say let's go through the legislator and they decide to help us out at the $1.4 million that we're in debt already with the ambulance, if we put a taxing district in, is that gonna interfere with that?
See, that I don't know. I think though that money is earmarked to pay for that.
I think that's going to be one of the questions we're going to have.
Yeah, you're going to have to ask it. But the one thing for sure, the 1 point, we'll get that, but I think that's, if I understand when we talk about at the council meeting, that money is just to fill that gap, that you lost that money, and it's a one-time thing, so we're still going to have to figure something out.
Yep.
I would think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, so let's say they come up with some situation, whether they give us money or we can build or whatever it comes out, I think we can once we have a taxing district, if we find it better not to have it, I think we can probably disband it. I would think, down the road. But you're right, these are things you're going to have to ask.
Yeah, and we can ask that tomorrow after our committee of the whole, when them guys are up here, if that's going to affect that, to make sure that all of a sudden we put a tax restriction in and they say, well, hold up, we're not giving you guys any money for your past debt. So we got to make sure it all works together before we can move forward with something like that.
Yeah.
Get clarity, or however you want to say it.
Clarity?
There you go, that.
Hey, don't ask me to do it again.
Well, that's the unfortunate part. It's such a big problem. It's not a local problem necessarily. It's more of a federal reimbursement problem or an insurance type of issue. And that's the unfortunate part of it is we solved the problem on the local level for for a problem that's created in the federal level, let's say,
Right.
you know, and to make these places whole. And so, I mean, if there's some cooperation between the three entities or four entities of government, you have cities, counties, state, and federal governments that are, you know, and tribal governments as well that are needing this service, you know, that's a,
Yeah, because it's going to take all of them to figure it out, right? All of us and them to figure it out, and it is. And that's the thing, that's the whole, everybody from that, you know, like, same old story, right? That works in Minneapolis when you have thousands of runs a day or a week or whatever, but not as far. But I think I got a positive vibe from when I went there, going in the right direction. And with us too, I think we're heading in a good direction. At least we're thinking of things we can do here.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of the thoughts that I guess that we have and we have yet, I'm kind of waiting to set a meeting up till we get this information that we have. I mean, because honestly, if it's null and void to have a district or create something like that because of this moratorium, there's no sense in going through the motions of all the work
Right.
and all the meetings to say, well, no, you can't do it anyway. So I don't think that's the case, but I want to verify that for sure first. And then also verify how we can carve this out. So if it's, like, say, if it's outside the city limits, you know, I was talking with Commissioner Hell earlier about, you know, in reality, you know, when the mayor had mentioned that, you know, it's not the runs from the house to the hospital that's the issue, it's the runs from the hospital to the wherever else you go to that next level of care. And that next level of care affects also other districts and other areas of the county as well. So that isn't just in the International Falls Ambulance District, correct? That would be if Little Fork brings something in, or somebody out west from the first responders area brings somebody in, maybe even from Westerly, Clemenson, that maybe, you know, maybe Badette comes this way, for instance. So that there's an issue there as well, that these transfers would be, maybe not countywide, because the southern part of the county does go the other direction, towards Bemidji, obviously, because it's much closer. But one thing to consider too that we also have to think about internally as a county group is how do we handle that? I mean, because those people are also taking rides and transfers from that same hospital that whoever, now I know, and what I'm not sure other, maybe Betty can answer this because I don't remember, the first right of refusal, is that from the entity that brought the person to the hospital, or is it from the entity where the hospital is?
It's International Falls' first right of refusal as they are within our service area.
So if the hospital calls and International Falls says all our ambulances are gone, you'll have to call the next, okay. Well, that clarifies that, so thank you. I wasn't sure on how that worked, if it followed the district or if it was actually within this district. Okay. So that answers that, thank you. Anyone else? Pretty quiet.
No.
Everybody's coming off of vacation.
Is there an option just to bring them to Bemidji and not Duluth? Or one essential, let you bring them to
That I
Bemidji
think, oh,
instead?
I believe they take them to Bemidji also.
I mean, that would save 80 miles in an hour,
Yeah,
hour and a half.
I mean, I
of time.
believe I can't speak for sure, but I believe they take them to Bemidji if that's where the service is, what they need. You know, a lot of it is they're sending them out to places where they can get the services they need. And I would.
But
no.
are all the cities runs to Duluth, or
No.
do you
No.
bring them to
No,
Bemidji?
They run to Bemidji,
They run to
too.
Bemidji, and
My
they-
daughter had to ride an ambulance just to have a baby to Bemidji.
Yeah.
No doctors for baby doctors here.
Mhm.
Depends on what it is.
Mhm.
And a lot of where they're aligned with. So obviously, if they have the doctors to go to Bemidji, I'm sure they're more than willing to send them to Sanford instead of East Central.
Mhm.
So my question is, if it's a federal shortage, funding shortage, and you're asking the state to backfill that, is there a chance, a good chance that happens? And the state will obviously turn around and go after the federal. Shouldn't we be talking to the Klobuchar and?
We are.
We are.
Yep, they're well aware and talked. The last one I was at this fall, she was up here, we brought it up, and I know the mayor's been in contact with them. And and the state representatives, yes, are already talking to them because they realize it's a Medicaid thing as well, a lot of it, especially here, right, because of the age of population that we're all getting closer to that.
Is that 100% of the problem, or is there other issues?
No, that's not 100%, but that's 90. Yeah, 90. It's the reimbursement because you go to Duluth. We go to Duluth. I don't know what that is. What do we bill? Do you know offhand?
I don't.
Let's say $1,200, which could even be up to like, well, all we get reimbursed is $400. So.
Is there a breakdown you could have of that? Like, you're losing $250 to $350 a year. Is there a breakdown of all of that we can?
Yeah, we had it at the forum we had here before Christmas. I'm sure we got it somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, the numbers and where it is and the different numbers for the year and stuff
Right.
like that. Yeah.
So if you're,
And that's it, right now, one of the things is, well, go back to ALS, which is fine, but, or not BLS. Number one, you gotta find people to do it, which people do not want to do. It's hard enough to find people to be paramedics to do that, and it's just 2 levels of service. But even then, if they're on duty, like at the fire station and go on a call, they get paid $75 an hour, roughly like that. So that's where it comes though. If we're really to be honest, if we don't get funding or help, those are the things that will have to happen if we don't want to continue to eat the ambulance service with our other services.
Any other questions on the ambulance? So I think we'd be looking for maybe a breakdown of the service, the style, the
Yep.
kind of the structure of it, how it runs, why it runs that way, perhaps.
Yep.
Maybe just as a brief, because a lot of these folks are new.
No, I understand.
And I
Yes.
don't want to misspeak and explain it differently. I go through my notes and try to
Well,
find stuff.
yeah. Well, you and me both,
I'm not
right?
going to be able to explain
Yeah.
it as good as I know the city can. I know they're really in the midst of it, so.
Yeah, and we will. Yeah, we can get that, Betty. And, yeah, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of my knowledge too, just so we all
Yeah,
understand.
like I said, we went through a lot of this step by step. We haven't broken it down financially on transfers. I mean, first we could call it a transfer fee for all purposes' sake. We wouldn't necessarily need to have an ambulance taxing district. We could call it a transfer fee or a transfer tax, basically. I mean, because that's essentially what it is, going from hospital to hospital. And I think that would it should be just a thought, but as a consideration. But like you say, the internal in-town runs can break even, let's say. It's just the transports that are having. So I think the transport, think about it, run it through and think, wash it back and forth and see what you think about that. And that kind of leads into where the funding should come from, in my opinion. Rather than a local funding, it should be more of a federal reimbursement issue and go for transfer from hospital to hospital. Now, I know you're providing service for that, no different than anyone else. If it was somebody else doing the same service with the same overhead and the same all that, those costs would be and those returns would be the same, I would imagine, right? I mean, they're going to do the same run that you're going to do, what the city's going to do. And
Well, just put in perspective.
they're going to incur the same losses, I guess, is the thing.
Right.
So that's why keeping it maybe separate might be a better thought, or not all encompassing and maybe easier for people to palate that. But.
It is. Well, but I do know enough to know that a run, when I was still paying bills for the sheriff's office, a run from the jail to the hospital costs $800. So if you are only getting $400 reimbursing, you're still losing.
Still going backwards with that formula. Okay.
But yeah, we'll get the breakdown. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's for the benefit of the
Yeah. No, I
folks and
understand.
stuff that are here, and just to be able to see what
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just think of that. Think of what this could actually be called to. I know there's been other thoughts and floated around and stuff, but this truly is a reimbursement issue, and I personally don't feel it should be on the backs of the taxpayers again to reimburse. People have insurance for a reason. They have this coverage for a reason. I understand you have co-pays. I get all that, but this is way beyond the co-pay area of the $25 or the 20%, like a lot of our plans do have, is co-pay 20% up to whatever $6,000 or whatever it is. Well, that's doable. But when you're losing, like you say, half or more on a run, that's ridiculous in my opinion too. So to put that burden on the rest of the payers that are already paying, that's I guess some of the issue that I see in fairness, honestly, but I know you see it
That's,
too.
well, no, and that's why we're working
So-
with state and federal
Yeah.
people. This
Yeah.
is bigger than that.
Yeah.
I see two things that bother me. City of International Falls gets bad mouth the council for not knowing what they're doing because of the International Falls debt. And it's not the city council. It's because we're not being reimbursed.
There you go.
But we take a beating all around.
A perfect.
We don't know what we don't know what we're doing. And that's a bunch of well,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it irritates me. The cost, if we were just taking it to the hospital out here, we'd lose some, but it's when we really lose is when we transfer. Because wear and tear on the ambulance, you're going down to Duluth,
Yeah,
we gotta buy ambulances,
yeah.
and it's the I Falls taxpayers that are picking up the tab. And so we gotta clean this up.
And one of the things people say, well, can you contact a private company? Well, before I got out of the council, once again, I'm because I wasn't here, but I understand they said, yeah, we'll run your ambulance service for you. It's going to cost you $1.5 million a year for us to run your
And
ambulance
that's private.
service. And that's private.
We've looked into it.
What it all boils down to is that Medicare hasn't changed their rates since, I think it's 1980. And that's where the fault is. If that had been raised as inflation went along, nobody would be in the same situation, but Medicare just hasn't raised the rates since 1980.
Might be behind a little bit, but not as far as we are now.
Right.
And one of the problems too is, believe it or not, ambulances aren't considered an essential service, so you can't use government aid for that either.
And that's-
Local government aid.
And hence the levy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you envision a taxing district, and maybe that's a question here, the tax, is that county-wide or just this ambulance service area?
We haven't broken that, but I would assume it would just be for the Falls
Service
area
area.
here, service
Service
area.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking,
Because I'm sure you're already part of a taxing district out there for the first responders. It'd be like the first responders or something like that.
I don't think I am right there.
Okay.
At least it's not on my tax bill. They might be in the couple of townships farther.
Farther.
But I'm thinking like North
Where
Oak
you're at, yeah.
or Little Fork. I mean, because if it was county-wide, they would need that
Yeah.
tax dollars to go to them taxing,
Yeah.
or them ambulance service
Yeah.
areas.
Just to get you guys up to speed a little bit on, we had a steering committee going before the county board got down to 3 people, and so that put on hold for now, but what we were looking at was every parcel within our service area that has a building worth over $10,000 would be included in this taxing district. And we broke it all down to the amount, the parcels that were there and everything. It would come out to about $60 to $65 a year per parcel, which would amount to, what, $1.50 a week. So, I mean, that's where we were at when we disbanded. That's what we had, that's where we were heading when we disbanded anyway.
Well, people that I've talked to in my area are absolutely not opposed to $60 a year, but I think it goes back to Commissioner Roach's question of, would we do more harm than
Yeah.
good?
I understand.
Yeah.
Everybody understands the need for an ambulance.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And everybody wants to stay with ALS and not go to BLS, which we've got to work towards that. That's the thing.
I think Walt could explain to you what those ambulances cost.
Right, Walt, you got a figure, don't you, or what?
An
Yeah, the new one's
ambulance
about $350,000.
350,000, and you're not getting it. When you put an order in, you don't get it right away.
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
All this stuff sounds familiar to a guy that buys a cookie.
Yeah, you buy them, yeah, never do. Yeah.
350 don't scare us anymore.
Yeah. Or wait a year and a half to.
Then you got oil changes on your ambulances. They're coming in and out. Only so many miles, and oil change, whatever, maintenance. I mean,
So to recap, that's I think, like I said, I think everybody does realize the need to have this here. The ALS obviously is necessary to get us where we need to go safely, and taking a ride in that myself. Not too long ago, it's, you got to get to that next level of care, and that's keeps you healthy and gets you better and gets you back to doing what you do. So, and obviously, I would be in the Medicare. I have an insurance carrier, so whatever the cost is, it is, and whatever it's billed, it is. So, but it's obviously the Medicare and MA and those types of runs that are the ones that are not getting compensated. So, and again, I know we mentioned this last time. I thought we had it 60%. I think we're looking at upwards of getting closer to 80% of those runs, I believe, on average, are going to be Medicare-ish runs in the near future, at least. So, there's definitely a need now more than ever to do that. So, hopefully, there's some support on the next levels up. So, anybody else have anything?
I got one more question. I'm talking to a former commissioner that got transferred out of here. And the ambulance didn't go by ambulance, he got transferred out by air because there's nobody to take the ambulance, I think. And 80 grand is what he was telling me. Now, does that affect you when the air transfer?
No.
Okay. So why don't we do them all by air?
Good question. One, there's only so many.
I mean, they obviously would catch on to that real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
But
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Why would they? If the transfers are losing money, just send them our ambulance, let somebody else deal with it.
they would maybe come up with a solution a little bit quicker.
They would.
And I do believe they're working now. They're at two, and they were part of the committee and stuff before the hospital, correct? And so yeah, they're aware. So yeah, it's going to involve them. It's not just us, but the private entities involved too.
How are they going to help?
Are the air ambulance, is that private? Or
Yeah.
is that connected?
Those
to-
are private.
No, that's private.
Private?
Yeah.
Who reimburses them? The insurance companies?
Insurance companies.
Well, you would think the insurance companies would want to get involved in this too. And say, it's cheaper to go by ambulance, we'll help you.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
So the actual hospitals, well, they're not a part of any of this, correct?
No.
Hospitals are not a part of this issue at all. They're separate from all this.
If all we had to do was transfer them to the hospital, we'd be in pretty good shape.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily,
No.
You're losing the
but
money,
you'd
we're
be in
losing
better
money.
shape. You're still losing money.
Yeah.
However, it's the wear and tear that I see. When you're making them Johns to Duluth and constant going. If all you had to do was go out here, you wouldn't have to buy as many ambulances and,
Would the private area ambulance have the option to refuse?
I would assume, but I don't know. I don't know what they do or don't. Yeah.
Depends on weather, depends on if
Weather.
they're available. I mean,
And they don't have like 10, air ambulances. I don't know, maybe a couple in Duluth or the surrounding area and weather. But they might catch on to it, but you said maybe that'd get everybody on board. Unless they get tired of taking Medicare, people buy ambulance and getting $400. Yeah, right?
Might end that pretty quick. So, good questions, though.
And maybe if the hospital or the clinic coded it different, so they would get more reimbursement, would that be an option too? If they put a different code in for Medicare, so it comes out to $800 instead of $400.
I don't know about the billing, about all that stuff that they do.
I would imagine that they've got to be doing it within the regulations and guidelines of Medicare right now. That they wouldn't be able to do anything differently, or we'd all been doing that. So,
Any other ambulance questions? Hearing none, what should we talk about next? I think we had on the last agenda, we spent some time talking about the airport funding and how that's also kind of a bit of an issue there as well. And it's just, and I think timing was mentioned. The timing on our part is unfortunate, I'll call it, because we have a lot of bills coming up here with some of the payments that we have due with our jail construction and some of the levy amounts that we've all noticed and seen to help pay for that, and that's going directly out of the levy. There is no outside monies coming in for that at all. That is completely, borne from the tax that we collect on our levy for that note that we have to borrow on. So, and there's two notes. There will be two notes here shortly. There's another note that will be probably expected drawn prior to construction bid openings or construction awardation, I guess I should say. We'll have to procure that other funding prior to that. So that I guess is some of the concern that I think we have is too much too fast on some of this stuff here. Now we obviously want to put this stuff behind us and get it going, and once you get started, that's the hard part. Sometimes is getting the shovels in the ground and getting going and stuff. And there's a lot of work been put into the jail in itself. And I'm just wondering how some of the airport funding. And I understand the bane and the unfair deal also, but I also see another benefit to this here. And I would argue that the benefit is the financial benefits that the city bears from having that here. You have all the hotels, you have all the restaurants, you have all the people, you have all the services within the city limits. And that would be a consideration to think about when the funding of this airport is. And I don't have those numbers in front of me. I'm kind of thinking on how I can phrase that to the Department of Revenue to get those numbers, those actual factual numbers. And just so they comprehend what I'm asking, I guess, and make sure that we get the information that's correct. So on some of the tax revenues and things like that. One of the other issues I think too that's been mentioned and brought up a little bit is the 56649 taxing district, the 1% road tax that the city has, and that encompasses the 56649 zip code, which outside of the residents, outside of the city limits, there's about 2,700 people that are in that are paying that 1%. That equals out to be about $300,000, depending on how many people are within. I'm just going per person. I'm not going per parcel or anything, but the sales, and the sales too could be separated out as well. And I know there's an option to save all your receipts and send them all in. However, the only other thing that I guess I have issue with that, and that's not necessarily a city problem. That's more of a Department of Revenue problem. But out in Birchdale area, they have a 56683, is it?
2-3.
2-3.
Was 2-9. 2-3.
Was 2-9, and it went to 2-3, which now includes Baudette. So now the residents in Birchdale are not considered from Birchdale. When it goes 56629, it goes to 2-3, which is going to Baudette now. Now, what if Baudette imposes a taxing district saying, you know what, we need a road tax as well, or a wheelage tax? Well, no, that's not even in the same county, right? That's not even in Koochiching County. These people don't even live in Koochiching County, and they're included in that zip code, so you can see the issue. And it's a similar issue there, and I don't know that they have any type of a taxing district in Baudette necessarily, or within that 56623 zip code. But if they did, that would be an issue there for certain, because they're not even obviously in the same county. And I would argue that here as well. So that's some of the stuff that I think in fairness and representation of the citizens for that, I think that should be a consideration as well when we're talking about this here. Because it kind of
Does the county not have a sales tax?
We do, yes, it's countywide.
Countywide. Yeah.
5% countywide. County roads, I don't know how many miles of roads are within the city limits of different communities that are kind of just connecting thoroughfares for commerce.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do is they, like the 17th streets, the 11th streets, the 20th streets, I think what the 155, 332, that's a huge commerce route over there. And, 107 is kind of a
So it's kind of the same thing.
Not really, because it's actually countywide. And this year, when you're collecting 1%, you're collecting that 1% from people that live outside the city limits. Some of the citizens voted within the city limits for that 1%. 2,700 people didn't get to vote for that. So therein lies the problem, that they're paying the 1% that don't live in the city limits. You understand?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm not understanding, I agree, but this isn't the time or place.
Oh, I absolutely know, but that's one of the issues that we're gonna bring up.
Yeah.
And just wanted you to, kind of look forward to that, so you do understand that there's about $300,000 that are coming from those 2,700 people that are living outside the city limits. And I will have firm numbers for you when I get hold of the Department of Revenue, and just so everybody knows where we're at. So then when you say, well, we don't really want to be part of the airport, we need help with the ambulance, some of the issue that I think I deal with personally, represent and trying to represent in the best way. Obviously we need an ambulance, and yes, we want to have an airport, and yes, we want to have these things for our community, absolutely. But in all fairness, what is truly fair? And that's the issue that I have is, okay, what's fair? If we're going to be fair, let's be fair. And so I think people would agree with that. Now, would they say, yes, I drive on the streets of International Falls? That's fine, but do they? If you live outside of town and you work in Boise Cascade, you go down one little half street and you're at your parking lot, and you get on the street and you go home, you stop at the grocery store, off the state highway, little street to get to the grocery. And I'm just saying, is that really? But the point of it being is they're not really actual citizens of the city, and they get a vote to say so. So that's one of the issues I think that the taxation, the representation part of it is kind of something that I think that should be either ironed out or figured out. And it's not just here. Like I say, it affects Birchdale as well with the 2-3 zip code down there. And maybe that's more of a state issue, just so you're aware of that. So, but just also aware that that money is going into the city coffers. So, as uncomfortable as that sounds.
Right, but that is
And I
what
also-
there for specific reasons for the infrastructure and the roads. Those are only certain things that those dollars are spent on.
I
Those dollars
understand.
cannot be allocated for
Well, no,
anything but what we were approved for the sales tax.
But we have about a $250,000 to $300,000 deficit with the ambulance. I'm thinking, well, if we pull that back, we could then fund that ambulance fairly. Because then it would actually be, because the districts almost overlap each other. The ambulance district is nearly the same as the 56649 district, very close at least. So it's very close to,
No, it's not.
No, 56649 goes all the way up the lake to the end of the road, goes all the way out to Fallon Junction.
Doesn't go down
56649
Capitogama, doesn't go out to Loman.
Capitogama, no. Loman, no. But very few people in Loman, and Capitogama's in a different county, so that's kind of not.
It's still out of district.
It may be your district, but there's still, that's to me, that's St. Louis County. That's not Koochiching County. And St. Louis County has to make those decisions and actually have their approval from their board to do that. So that is a separate deal in that area. Whereas, I think under the Loman, there is no township, so then yes, that would be under the county out in the Loman area. So whatever that encompasses, wherever I think Lake of the Woods takes over for their ambulance service, that's where that line will be. And you can very easily pull numbers out of that through the GIS and the ENO and stuff. It's fairly easy to do that. Not easy, but it can be done. So, but just as a consideration, and that's kind of some of the thoughts that at least I have on that is that some of that funding is being collected from county taxpayers that didn't get a say so.
And as far as the motels go and stuff, are they not in Koochiching County?
Well, they certainly are, but we're also we're abating those hotels as well to the tune of about $50,000 a year. Right?
Yeah, and
Is that right?
and
I think that's correct.
And
on
not-
that.
I don't
So
know
we're
what-
abating that, yeah, and so are you.
Yeah,
Actually.
but
We're
what you're
abating both
saying,
of
but
them.
you're saying we're getting the benefits. Well, it's not. If we're collecting cities' tax
Yes.
dollars from these, so is the county.
Yes, we are, absolutely.
Okay,
Then we don't get the decision on what you do, though. That's the issue. Therein lies the issue, is the taxation without representation.
Yeah.
Okay?
And you do represent people from International
I
Falls.
certainly do represent them, yes. In all fairness, yes.
Yeah.
But you don't represent people outside the city limits,
I
do
do
you?
not.
Okay. So anyway, anybody have anything else?
I just had a question. We kind of have an avenue to go forward with the ambulance with the committee. Do we need anything formal for future discussions on the airport? I just don't want to repeat this year or last year with getting to the end of the year and be scraping funding together or not. I don't know if we need to talk about how we want to pursue that conversation.
Just so you know, I told Dor that we were having this meeting today, but he had other obligations and he had meetings he had to be at today, otherwise he would have been here. So, and, for the airport part of this part, so.
I mean,
But I know you're saying those, so we get to the So it isn't that tax time, and we have what happened this year.
Well, last I heard that the city can't fund the airport next year, 25, is my understanding. Is that,
It hasn't been voted on.
no, I know it hasn't been, but that's been discussed.
The discussion.
It's been discussed, or how much we're gonna
But it
put.
hasn't been voted on.
Correct. And then the city
And I guess that'll all come down to what, how much their airport commission's looking for, how much we can get, I guess is the important thing.
Yeah. I just was hoping we could get ahead of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Including the airport and both bodies,
Yeah.
so that, I mean, I guess they have to know their operations too, for those of you that sit on the commission.
Well, yeah, and I think, with some of the relationship, trying to work together and stuff, it may be better to work separate on this, perhaps. Maybe we just do our own separate deal outside the city limits and take care of it, and, I mean, it's nice and neat and clean, and there's not any controversy of any future funding or anything like that. And, we wouldn't have to necessarily, I think we could agree that it's a necessary fee that we need to pay, but we would have a separate board to be able to assess that fee. Separate board meaning county residents, county commission, maybe ambulance personnel perhaps, just as for the funding mechanism side of things. And similar to a rural fire type of situation where we'd have a separate board and it's in and for a separate area. It's kind of, and I don't know, I can't speak for this board here, and would that be something that would be appropriate? As long as, we're going backwards here, but it didn't get brought up the last time. Is that something would be okay? You understand what I mean?
No, I'm not. I didn't follow what you just said. I'm sorry.
Well, what I'm saying is we would have if it's a rural fire, like say that, it would be a rural ambulance, which would include outside the city limits of International Falls as well as outside the city limits of Rainier as well, and kind of carving around and taking, everywhere outside of the city limits. Would that be appropriate or?
I'm still not following what you're asking. Our ambulance service has a service area that we're required to provide.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what I'm saying is if there were a board set up that was within the ambulance service area, outside of the city limits of International Falls and outside of the city limits of Rainier, would that be okay? I just think it's just the idea of having that representation for those folks from the county board that represents them. Because there are no townships, there are no township representatives. This would be, and obviously you represent the city of International Falls people, correct?
Right. Well, that's what our steering committee was a member
Right.
from all of those areas.
Right. But we're not doing a joint powers agreement or anything like that now, so that really is irrelevant. I think that we don't need to have that discussion necessarily. We just need to get some funding for it, right?
Correct.
And then we'd have that separation there of who we're representing at least. And honestly, it's like 50-50 anyway, or very nearly. So it's not like it would be, because I know that's how the rural fire is done in Rainier. They have a negotiation with the city, and it's a certain amount of money for the city of Rainier. And it's, I don't know what it is, 18 or 19,000, I think is what it is.
Right,
Instead of paying the $90 plus the commercials and things like this here,
Right.
they represent, the city council of Rainier represents Rainier, is what I guess,
And seeing that because of the way the E EMSRB regulates our service area, I'm not sure, how that would come into play on that. That's why we're here talking, is we're open to discussions from, outlying areas.
Well, I think it's only fair that they have that representation too, within the county board group. Obviously the city is different. They are the ones making the decisions for the ambulance service and what that is. We're not. The steering committee doesn't make those decisions either. The ambulance, whoever runs that ambulance is making those decisions, the city council included. So therefore, to kind of keep that separation of that, I think it might be, a little cleaner and a little more understandable for folks to say, oh, it's a transfer run because of this. This is a transfer fee because of this. This is outside here. This is not included. We're not associated with City of International Falls with this. They are, they can do they're gonna do what they're gonna do, and we think we can do what we think we need to do. And we'd be able to have that within
I
our
think that
rural
would be
area.
something we'd have to talk with the E EMSRB and find out, I mean, because they're the regulatory board of the ambulance. You know, we follow their guidelines and their states,
Right.
that's state statute with them, so,
Right.
excuse me, we'd have to talk with them to, I don't know the legalities of that, Jason. Have to visit with them on to verify
I-
what, I get what you're saying now and
Yeah.
understanding that,
Yeah.
but that was something we'd definitely have to talk with them on to see
Yeah.
what that option would look like in order, to move something forward.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the questions that we still had that were kind of waiting to be answered as well. Some of those questions that kind of pop up as you're thinking about things, and anyway, that has been, kind of one small part of a discussion. Not obviously not an official discussion, but, something that we, obviously considered, so. And that's going on based on some of the conversations I had with county residents. That is some of their desire. I think they believe with the fee, they think it's very reasonable, but they would like to have that representation as well. And that's what I've heard from a couple of people, and I don't know if anybody else has heard that. But that's kind of what I've heard specifically.
And
All in
because
favor
it's
of the
all,
fee,
yep, well, and
obviously.
because it's all managed by the state, that's gotta go through, I mean, these are all state statutes that we're running on.
Right.
That's regulated and, pushed forward through the E EMSRB. So that's where I'm gonna rely heavily on them to help guide through what you're discussing.
Yeah, we'll try to have a conversation with them and ask that question if they can understand.
I know, and I think to go back, if we end up having a taxing district, if that goes through or whatever, the ambulance service, well, that is going to be its own entity, right? So we would have to have just like you're saying,
Yes.
something.
Then members of each of the areas
Areas
are
of-
part
of
of
the
that
board.
board.
But they wouldn't be in this situation here. This would be separate. We would have our own board to taxate, or for taxation outside the city limits. That's what I'm talking about right here. It's no different than what you'd have inside the city limits. You'd represent your, what the folks would want, and obviously we try, keep it even. It's just one, it's kind of like a fail stop. Whereas the joint powers board with the airport, there isn't a fail stop. One entity or the other can just back out of it, and then they're stuck with it. Well, I don't want to have that happen again, is what I'm saying. So that's why the separation. I know you understand that, and
Now I do.
Everybody here understands that too quite well. So I guess that's the reasoning why I'm saying that, just to have that fail stop there to say, hey, wait a second, we don't know about this. You know what I mean? And I think that's only fair with the situation that's happening with the airport. So.
But
I
that's why you
understand
have
that.
agreements like that, Jason.
I
is
understand
you have
that,
a clause,
absolutely.
and you have the
Absolutely, but
guidelines, and
I
so
don't-
you have
yeah.
that.
Yeah, but I don't
And
think it'd be
there-
in the best interest of the county to get into an agreement like that again. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
and that's entirely up to
Yeah,
you, but
yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
those things are put in place with
Absolutely.
all of the detail
Yeah.
outlined, so there's
Yeah.
options. So
Absolutely.
not everybody is stuck, just in case it's good or bad, whichever it happens to be. But that's why they're there.
I agree 100%. I think that's a very legitimate point with the airport and with the ambulance. However, the controls wouldn't be within the joint powers, it would be within the county board or the representatives of that area, at least, that are being represented to make that recommendation. I think that would be, it just gives a little bit of a fail stop for the county to say, hey, 5 years down the road, we have to do the X, Y, and Z, and the price has got to go up. For whatever reason. Well, then to me, that would be, if we don't have resolve from the next level of government for reimbursement rate for the service for our area, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow in the future, I think. Because if you think they solved the problem because you throw some money at it, that didn't solve the problem. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying that nobody's going to be working on it, but I'm just saying there's a little bit of a fallback on that's different than what I've seen that's not working in another joint powers agreement in a different entity. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that it's illegitimate or legitimate or anything like that. I'm not saying it's not valid, that the funding mechanism is unfair either, honestly. You're right. There's double taxation. You tax here, you tax here. What's good for the city is good for the county. When the city's growing, the county's obviously growing too, right? So I understand that part of it. So.
And one of the reasons we came up with the whole airport, so we're doing this, what we're doing right now. So we'll talk about it. Otherwise, right? It would just keep going around and around, and
Yep.
that's the whole reason.
Yep.
And I feel we'll be able to get something resolved with this, because we all agree with the airport, with the ambulance, but we have to. And that's the,
Yep.
might have been a shot over the ball, but there's a reason for that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, well, that creates hesitancy
Yeah.
with many people that I represent too, that have called me and talked to me in person, that say, you know, we don't know that we want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But we agree with the idea and the need, however, we don't know if we want to be tied to any decisions. And that's not neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Right, so. Well, we were on the airport, but they kind of blended here.
Well,
And I guess I mentioned again at the last meeting that we had here, Mayor Drove had mentioned that the city's looking for a county-wide airport taxing district. Is that what I had heard?
he might be coming.
Well, I think we're just looking at the option that within the agreement, we have the option in the number of years to not be part of the taxing district, the joint powers. And therefore, the county would be the sole owner of the airport.
And it says here, with that, the city is asking for help, asking the county to create an airport taxing district in the minutes from last month. Okay, all right.
And then that way, all residents of the county would be, paying and being part of that.
Thoughts, anyone?
Well, pretty obviously, a countywide one wouldn't work for my constituents in Norfolk.
Yeah,
That's
I
obvious.
understand, yeah.
Because they probably don't get any of the tourism that comes in, and they don't use the airport up here.
I'd be surprised if they use this airport. I mean, they're set, 50 miles, 40 miles from Bemidji, 70 miles from here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, actually, I guess it'd be interesting to see how much the outlying areas did use, like from Birchdale west, probably. I think,
Yeah, that's right.
who said that there wouldn't be a large user is Ontario or Canadian?
They are.
They are very big users of that airport, but I think, I don't know, you do.
I mean, obviously, from what I've seen, and I'm new to this,
Yeah.
infrastructure and natural resources is much more my area, but we need an airport because the dollars that you put in versus the dollars you get back is pretty impressive, really, what I've seen, so gotta figure it out.
Yeah, and that's like this, I mean, no one here has claimed that we don't need an airport, don't want an airport. We use the airport.
So, any other questions on the airport? Nothing? I know we just set a contract and it was like 2.5%, I think, for the fuel farm, not the fuel farm, but the other one, the driveway and stuff, I think. And that was, the parking lot was a little bit more, but the fuel farm was even better yet.
Yeah.
It was 2.5%, which was like $8,000 or something. It was
Yeah.
crazy. So that's a big deal right there to continue to support that. I mean, that was a great return on investment there. So if there's nothing else, do we want to have another meeting date set, or do we want to?
Jason, if I may,
Sure.
just for learning purposes, I think it would be good if we could have Thor here to help us all understand how the airport is, as I'm learning and understanding this airport a little bit more, how how they're regulated by the FAA to do the projects that they do, and why, and the timing. And, you know, a couple of meetings I've sat in on, you know, I'm starting to understand that a little bit more, but that, I think it's a really important for people to understand with our airport. If, you know, we all understand it's needed, it's a benefit to our area as a whole. What then are we obligated to do with that? And that's FAA. What are they and how are they really controlling that budget? Really controlling when this needs to be done, when this needs to be done, how, you know, soon the capital things come back around. And, you know, Thor indicated at a meeting, well, if they didn't take that money then, they'd get pushed to the back of the line.
Right.
Well, we all understand that because we have to do that sometimes if we can't afford to do a project that year. We know we're going to lose some state funding. We're going to have to get back in line. It might be 2 or 3 years. But we all need to understand, I think, the importance and the relevance of how that works with FAA. Because I think they're in the driver's seat. Unless I'm really missing the boat on the airport, I think they're in the driver's seat. And I would love to learn and understand a little bit more about that.
Well, lots of times what happens is, if you get jumped out of line, like our loader at the airport right now, I believe is, what, Esther, 2001 or 2002?
That's what they say, yeah.
So, and we're gonna get a new loader this year coming up. So it's 20 years old, we've been running the same front end loader. If we jumped out of line and said, no, we can't do that now, it's gonna be 20 more years before we get that loader back into our roundabout again. So now we're gonna have a 40-year-old loader plowing our airport. So everything goes, the end of the line might be 15 years, it might be 18 years, it might be 20 years before it comes back around through that cycle again.
Right.
I don't think we're looking at equipment as much as we are projects out there. I mean, we're looking at, they've got their 5-year plan for projects. I think it'd be good for them to bring it in here and show us what that 5-year plan is and why it is the way it is and why this has to be done each year or what can be changed, you know. I
Like I
think
say, Thor was gonna be here today, but he had other commitments, he had to be at another meeting today, so otherwise he would have been at this meeting
But
with
I
us
think
today.
Can we
if you do invite them though, I think we need to have that, specifically what we're looking for would be the projects in the future that are coming up, what are you looking at?
Need
and what
projects.
needs to be
Right,
done.
we all have, need projects, smart
Yeah.
projects.
Well, I know we have another runway construction coming
Yeah.
up for the, I don't know which way, yeah, east-west. It's got a number, but I don't remember what the number is, but that's coming up because that hasn't been done in 30-some years.
But we re-invite him, Rick, you know, he couldn't make it this time, could he be at the next meeting?
I'm sure if we can give
Set
him
the
notice
meeting
right
now.
now, if we give him a date, we can set a date right now, I'll be seeing him tomorrow.
Okay.
So he can get that penciled in his schedule to make sure.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to be able to give him a heads up at what do we want him to bring with him so we have knowledge so he can come in, not just shoot off the hip. I can bring in my paperwork. So we have to come up with something that you guys want to talk about with him. And I guarantee he'll bring all the paperwork with him.
And that's just like Betty was saying there
Yep.
for us and these, yeah, if we have an idea, yeah, what are the projects, why do we have to you know what we're saying?
But if we have questions that we want to ask them, let's get them on the table now, get them on a piece of paper now so they can come prepared to answer those questions.
Yep. So if you want to know a project that's coming up, why do we have to do that this time? Can we wait for 5 years? Thor would be the one, him and Guy would be the ones that would
That'd be
answer
good.
that question.
Yep.
I've had conversation with Thor too as well, and I thought, you know, after the new year, we were gonna kind of try to get together with our board and have them go over those specific projects, ask very similar questions of more project timelines, because I think that's for the long-term budgeting type thing. I think we're gonna need to know that over the course of time to know how much to save, how much to, you know, I think that's gonna be extremely helpful for us to be able to do that, so.
So we can knock that down where we're both at the same meeting, so
Right.
if he only has to go to one meeting, he can explain it to both the city and the county at the same time, which would be beneficiary to all of us and him for his time too.
And we do have our 5-year plan ready now.
Yes, they do.
Just did that, so.
And like, I'm on the airport board, so is Destry, and we talked about it, they said, well, what do we do with our old loader? they were gonna donate it to either the city or the county. Well, with the new equipment you got today, you can't afford to donate that thing because the new one's gonna be broke down half the time. So now the airport's got to figure out how they're gonna plow the runway, how they're gonna move their snow, how they're gonna do this. We said, we need to keep that until the new loader is actually proven with the new regulations that you have to have on them, let's just say, to run.
Ricky, do you want to reach out to Thor? Do you want Betty or I to?
So if you guys want to, or and I will see him too.
Yeah, maybe.
But it'd be nice if you guys reached out to him too at the same time and explained that, you know, can you bring in your 5-year plan? Can you do this here? And come to the round table, so you only gotta present it once to us would be, I think, beneficiary to him in his time and us in our time at the same time.
You want to work on something together and
Yeah.
can send it off to Thor?
Yep, we can do that. Yep.
I don't know if you even want maybe possibility to have one, the SEH engineer, the one that sets this.
Tells them what they have to do.
Yeah, she'd have,
Well,
she'd have all
that's
the
my point,
answers.
is
Yeah, it's,
understanding that.
Yeah,
Have one of them people come up with them, if they know in advance and
That'd be
have the
good to
thing,
have
they
it
can
along.
bring, he could probably get one of them people to come up here.
They would.
We'll ask him those questions.
Or they can zoom in here too, I'm sure, or something.
Yeah, if we could have, you know, I think even a representative, I don't know how the FAA would tie into that funding, but if there was any representation from them as well, it might be a worthwhile thought. I know I think they have regional polls, if you call that, through the FAA, and I think it's probably the same people, pretty much, at least for a while, that you would get, so.
I'm confident that the SEH people know what the FAA is gonna do or not gonna do, because that they're.
Any other discussion on the airport? Anybody have anything else? So do you want to look at another meeting date here? Do you want to go another month or two, or what's the thoughts?
do we need one, maybe 2 months, or?
We wanted to have that discussion. I mean, we're going to be hopefully moving on, gathering together this questions that we have on this ambulance, these ambulance questions.
March?
I mean, I would assume that we can have that stuff in not too long, and probably a couple of weeks, I would suppose. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but I mean, honestly, we gotta get rolling on here pretty quick
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So if we want to meet again in February, that's fine. It's up to you guys, whatever you think. I think
That's fine with me, so
let's-
February is good for me, except for 7th through the 12th. I'm in Arkansas goose hunting, so.
You can shoot them anytime.
Ah.
Cancel that trip, come on,
A
man.
lot of shit. It's a conservation hunt. You
Help
shoot
with
it,
animal
they tell you
control.
to shoot as many as you can shoot.
Well, Monday the 5th, is that be the
Yeah, I
second?
could
Is that
make
a
it.
Monday again?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the first Monday of the month right there, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll shoot for Monday the 5th
Okay.
at 10. Are we okay meeting here in this room still?
Yeah.
Sure. If it's okay with them? Well, thank you all for being
Yeah.
here.
No?
Appreciate everyone's time.
Yes.
And we'll see you again on the
Fifth.
5th of February at 10 a.m.
Okay.